Hi, I'm Becky Davis with City TV, and welcome to Inside Santa Barbara, the city's only news magazine show. We bring you up to date on the city's most significant issues, projects, and events. Nearly 10 years ago, a tragic event took place right here in downtown that had a profound impact on our community. While the event was heartbreaking, we'll show you what's come out of it and how it's created positive and lasting change for youth in our community.
Just after 2 p.m., police responded to State and Carrillo.
It was an incident that shattered lives and shook a community. On March 14th of 2007, Luis Angel Linares, a gregarious 15-year-old Santa Barbara student, lost his life in a gang brawl in the middle of the day in the middle of downtown Santa Barbara. In its wake, the incident left a 14-year-old destined for prison and a community reeling, trying to make sense of it all.
I think it scared the community and really shook the community. You know, as being, you know, small community that we are, how could this happen here? How can we allow this as adults and as a community to happen? And I think that really began worrying people. And, you know, safety was that question. You know, are my kids at risk?
Well, I was concerned for my own kids, for my own young adults, and that they wouldn't end up like him.
It really opened up our eyes that this wasn't violence that was new, but it was moving from different parts of town to other parts of town. And we finally figured out as a community that it was no longer appropriate for us just to sit back.
The Linares murder changed more than the lives of those involved. It changed public sentiment. Whether it was because of the young age of the kids involved, the brutality of the act, or the heart of the city location, people began to realize the issue wasn't just a personal one, it was a public one too. The tragedy became a clarion call to address the problem of youth violence as a community.
If you think about, you know, what it takes for anyone to be successful, it's not just about being in a safe neighborhood, that's part of it. It's also about having job opportunities into the future, you know, having a sense of hope and ways to get ahead. There's so many different components in someone's individual life that makes that whole person work that you really need to focus on what does it take for that each individual kid to be successful.
But one thing that vexed many in the community at the time was the fact that there wasn't a shortage of services targeting kids considered at risk.
It was found that there was a lot of silos. There was a lot of good programs, but they were only working within the boundaries of their program. And so the goal was really to break those silos down and create more partnerships.
We were a bunch of different organized groups who were connected to youth who needed assistance, but we weren't connected to each other. And for example, the school district not knowing what probation was doing, the city's park and recreation department not necessarily knowing all the details behind the sheriff's department work, or organizations' social service groups.
In response to that need for connectivity and coordination, in 2008 the city spearheaded an effort to bring all the youth programs together to attempt to make the whole greater than the sum of its parts.
Collaboration and partnerships is really, you know, 1 + 1 = 3, creating those partnerships. It's not just to give and it's not just to take, but really sharing resources, sharing information, sharing the responsibility of who addresses this is important. I think so within those partnerships, you know, it's creating that trust.
After months of meetings, the group of over 40 stakeholders recommended that a regional effort be established to maximize the use of available resources based on the following principles. 1. Target services to youth actively involved with or at risk of becoming involved with gangs. 2. Employ prevention, intervention, and suppression strategies coupled with client-specific assessment and services. 3. Work to achieve more coordination and partnerships. Assign outreach workers in the schools to work with males and females and include family services. 4. Secure reliable funding for a long-term strategy that focuses on successful programs that can be evaluated. 5. Be risk-takers, recognizing that there will be successes and failures, but doing nothing should never be an option. And 6. Be patient. Problems did not arrive and will not be solved overnight. But this new regional effort needed coordination and continuity. To accomplish that, the South Coast Task Force on Youth Gangs was formed.
The task force was created, and the coordinator position, which I now work for, was created to lead this effort and to really bring the partners throughout the South Coast together and work on this.
Each of us as electeds, we have jurisdiction and authority over one component of what makes a community whole. And so what the task force does, it allows us to focus on what we can do while also then communicating with our colleagues in other elected capacities on what they are focusing on, and let each of us work on our strength and then fill in the gaps where needed.
With a unified team assembled, a comprehensive plan in place, and coordinator ready for action, the last piece of the puzzle was funding. Recognizing that no single local government could fund the effort, the county and South Coast cities agreed to share the administrative cost.
They're partner funders, and they fund the task force on an annual basis per capita, meaning that based on population rates for each municipality, they provide funds that go into a pot. And the overall task force is administered by the Community Action Commission as a neutral entity, provides the oversight for this effort in the South Coast.
But the task force's job was to act as coordinator and convener, not provide the actual services. So funds for that aspect were needed too. As a result of the investment in coordination, in 2009, the city of Santa Barbara received a $400,000 grant from the state to serve youth on the South Coast. But that grant required funds to be matched. By establishing new partnerships with the provider community, the task force was able to cobble together the match, allowing state money to fund youth programs on the South Coast. With the 6 principles as a guide and the task force as a coordinating resource, the schools, law enforcement, probation, and a cadre of youth-centered programs got to work. Tactics in the overall strategy ran the gamut from counseling to parental education and involvement to treating kids in a completely different way at school.
In our country, late 80s into the 90s, we really took a zero tolerance approach. And that doesn't work. In the Santa Barbara Unified School District, we're going to work to keep our students here in our district. And so if a student is, for lack of a better term, at risk, we're going to do everything we can to serve them, to keep them enrolled in our high schools, our junior high schools. So what that did was, with the exception of students who were expelled, we kept them in the district.
When school professionals treated them as individuals, so not like, oh, well, they did that crime and they do this time, but okay, they did this crime, and why did they do that crime, and what factors led to that, and what interests do they have, and let's get them involved in some art classes, or let's get them into this treatment, and that made a huge difference.
I worked a lot in this area when I was the police chief down south, and I became absolutely convinced that most young people were looking for an excuse to do the right thing. And those kind of prevention programs make that happen.
To communicate more effectively, especially with parents, educators and service providers learn to become more culturally proficient.
They use this word called los compadres. And in the Mexican community, if I go to your home and knock on your door and I say I'm your son's counselor, you're not going to be welcomed into my home, because we see counseling as a sign of weakness for the most part. But if you came to my house and you knocked on the door and you said, I'm your son's compadre, that word means a lot to me. It means that you're going to raise my child if something happens to me. It means that you're going to be there to support my child. So I'm not only going to welcome you into the home, but I'm probably going to ask you to eat. I'm going to want to serve you food before you leave. It's a relationship issue.
And key to the success and sustainability of the program, data collection, evaluation, and sharing have also been added to the system.
Not only data to evaluate, but data to inform practice. So we'd use an assessment to see, does this kid need mental health treatment? Do they need substance use treatment? Do they need skills development? And then placing them in programs that can do that.
Judging from the data, the new approach is having an impact.
We've seen a decrease from 254 youth in 2009 who were on probation with gang terms and conditions, all the way down to 62 youth in 2015 who were on gang terms and conditions in the juvenile probation.
We have seen a drop in the number of suspensions, in the number of expulsions, And so in terms of that data, we are seeing positive results. And that to us is the important piece, because if a student's not in class, they're not learning.
But the task force can't afford to rest on its laurels. It has to constantly prove its effectiveness while at the same time not become a victim of its own success.
It comes down to having proper evaluation. So when something's working, we can prove that it's working and then take it to government agencies and say, look, we have outcomes, this works, this needs to be funded, because it's always a struggle for what gets funded.
As we're seeing great success, the number of youth in at-risk conditions are declining, the number of youth who have probation terms and conditions are at an all-time low. We can't just give up and just say, we're done. This is an ongoing commitment. And just to remember that continual effort is what is making success happen.
Going forward, the now renamed South Coast Task Force on Youth Safety is striving to build on their success. With its strong cohesion, unified vision, and dedicated coordination, the task force as a whole is determined to keep innovating and adapting to the changing needs of the youth in our community, so that no child is lost to senseless violence again, and everyone has an opportunity to realize their potential.
I always knew that there was a potential to one day lose a student, but when it happens, it really shocks you, and I think it really, it gets the best of you. And now being a witness of all this work, that the community at large is doing, has been very motivating to see that, from tragedies, there's a lot of lessons learned, and there's a lot of positivity that comes from that as well.
Most of these young people do not want to do violence. Most of these young people do not want to hurt other people. What they want is to get by and live their life. And too often they don't see any other choices. Part of the role of the task force, part of the role of, I think, us as a society is to say there are other choices.
Without the community, really, it would just be tragic, because I just think that so many young lives would be lost, not just physically lost in terms of gang violence and or violence and death, but also lost in the sense that they would put themselves further into the juvenile justice system and be lost in that regard in terms of who their identity is, right? And being associated as a criminal or a probationer instead of being, seen for the value and the worth that they are. You're a human being, you are life, we value you, we value your future, and we want to invest in that.
For more information about the South Coast Task Force on Youth Safety, visit youthsafetytaskforce.org. Stay tuned, we'll be right back with more Inside Santa Barbara.
Hey John, you know that stuff is toxic to all insects?
I just want to get rid of aphids.
Yeah, it's also harmful to aquatic life when it washes into our creeks and oceans.
Creek man?
Citizens, word on the creek is there's a poisonous pesticide problem.
No,
Not to worry. Beneficial bugs will take care of that.
We're just talking about how to care for our yards and the creeks.
Glad I could be of assistance.
It doesn't take a hero to protect our creeks and ocean.
Welcome back. Have you ever come across a construction project and wondered what it was all about? Or heard about a public event that you would have loved to attend if it wasn't too late? Up next, we'll show you how the city makes it easy to stay informed about what's happening in your community. In today's digital age, there is no shortage of ways to receive information. From social media to mobile applications, you can get caught up on the things you care about in an instant. But do you know the best ways to receive news from the city? Whether you want updates on a project going on in your neighborhood or safety alerts sent straight to your phone, the city utilizes a number of platforms to get information out to the public.
There's so many different options to get the city's latest news. The best way to start is by visiting the city's website at santabarbaraca.gov. You can sign up for different newsletters to meet your exact needs. So maybe you want information on police alerts and crime information, recreation programs, recycling tips, water conservation, library events. You can sign up for the exact newsletter to get the information that you're caring about and receive only what you need.
For those that want more general information about what's going on in Santa Barbara, consider subscribing to the city's weekly digital newsletter, the City News in Brief.
Then you can get updates from all city departments, police, fire, library, parks and recreation, and you'd get information ranging from construction updates to events happening in the next few weeks to sales tax revenue from the last quarter. And it's a really efficient way to get caught up to speed quickly.
If newsletters aren't your thing, you can also stay up to date with city news by following specific departments on social media.
If you're more comfortable with social media, we have over 30 social media sites: Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube. So you can learn a lot of the city information for different departments or citywide news just by logging into Facebook or checking into Twitter.
Social media in particular has played a significant role in shaping how the city can get news out to the public, both quickly and efficiently.
My predecessors in this role would write a press release, and then you would have to rely on a reporter on the other end to take an interest in that piece. But in the last 4 years using social media, in addition to putting out information to the traditional media, I have the ability to put a lot of information out directly to my audience. So it's my message going straight to them, and it's unfiltered. And I found that to be very, very powerful.
The police department also utilizes a platform called Nixle to send police alerts and other community information directly to residents who subscribe.
So someone here in town could sign up to receive information from the police department, from the County Office of Emergency Services, and even places where they don't live but maybe they have an interest in. And using Nixle, they can decide what degree of information they want, whether they want general information or simply alerts and advisories, and they can decide whether or not they want that information pushed to their mobile device.
For information specific to your neighborhood or area of interest, consider using an application called Nextdoor.
Another site that's very popular is nextdoor.com. We have thousands of Santa Barbara residents who use that site to learn about information that affects their neighborhood only. They can share news that only their neighbors can see, so they've lost a dog, maybe they want to recommend a babysitter, discuss a neighborhood issue, and no one else can see it except for people who live in the neighborhood. The city regularly posts information that affects a small area of the city, so maybe it's a street closure or repair work that's only going to affect one neighborhood. So logging into nextdoor.com gives you the ability to get neighborhood news.
As a city user with Nextdoor, I can send out information specific to particular neighborhoods, or I can send out information citywide. And I found that useful on a few occasions where I've had to put out information about things like the Coast Guard doing training and using flares near Ledbetter Beach. Well, that's information that I don't necessarily need to clog people's emails who live on the north end, but it would be something that's pretty relevant for people that live near Shoreline Park, that kind of thing.
City TV, the city's government access channel, is another great way to follow along with what's going on in Santa Barbara. In addition to producing informational videos on a variety of topics, Channel 18 also serves to make the government decision-making process more transparent and accessible to the public by broadcasting city council meetings and city boards and commission meetings. For those without cable, a live stream of Channel 18 is available online 24/7 at santabarbaraca.gov/citytv.
People are finding their information and getting their news in so many different avenues, and we want to make sure that we have options on all of those, on Channel 18, on City TV, email newsletters, on the city's website, social media. Any of these places you're going to be able to find information from all city departments on programs and events.
Staff's recommendation at this point is that council discuss the potential merit.
To browse all the ways you can stay informed, visit santabarbaraca.gov/news. Or for a full list of city departments and their social media pages, visit santabarbaraca.gov/social media. The Santa Barbara Airport has been serving travelers since the time when propellers ruled the skies and jet engines were things of science fiction. A lot has changed since those early days, including the addition of many more destinations. City TV's Matt Hines has the story. If you have the urge to travel deep in the heart of Texas, you should take a look at the Santa Barbara Airport. That's because the Dallas-Fort Worth area has just been added to the list of direct connection destinations.
Santa Barbara worked on obtaining direct service to Dallas over the last probably 3 or 4 years. Working with our airline consultant, we put together a business case to present to American Airlines, indicating that Santa Barbara and the county had the population and the passengers needing that connection.
Passengers needing that connection now have a choice of daily flights through American Airlines. To give area travelers the most options possible, airport administration continually lobbies the airlines for new flight destinations.
We do lobby, and it's important to stay in front of the airlines, having your community and your air service needs presented to them on a frequent basis. And we do that working with our air service consultant to put the business case together, how many passengers there are in our area, the load factors that we anticipate we would have, how many seats we could sell. We also work with Visit Santa Barbara because we have mutual goals. They want to bring travelers to Santa Barbara, and we want to have those travelers fly into Santa Barbara.
The addition of a new destination is welcome news, as recent trends like airline consolidation have posed some challenges for the Santa Barbara Airport.
It's been going on for the last 10 years, to where you just have Delta, American, United are the legacy carriers, and you have Southwest and Alaska, and then you have low-cost carriers. But Alaska just announced they're purchasing Virgin America, so there goes another airline out of the mix. So the consolidation has really impacted small and medium-sized hub airports much more so than the large airports.
The recent recession also took its toll on air travel in general, and SBA, like other airports across the country, saw passenger numbers decline.
They're slowly coming back, and we're having to overcome not only the recession, but the consolidation with the airlines to where you really just have 3 major carriers in Southwest. And the loss of flights that we had, but we are coming back, slowly but surely.
Passenger counts from the Santa Barbara Airport reflect that comeback. In fact, the numbers from June show a healthy 7% jump over last year. Airport administration hopes that travelers will consider the many advantages of flying with SBA. There's a brand new terminal with all the latest amenities, it's close enough to catch a ride or Uber, and you don't have to deal with the traffic, parking, and security checkpoint headaches of LAX or San Francisco.
Our logo is easy come, easy go, and we came up with that because, quite frankly, it is so much easier to drive north as opposed to south. The airport provides great connections. TSA is easy to clear. You don't have the long lines. Parking is just across the street, and the prices are very, very reasonable. Plus, once you're here and you're upstairs, we have free Wi-Fi, great concessions, and you can't beat the view.
To book a flight, get travel tips, or just learn more about our beautiful airport, visit flysba.com. Stay tuned, we'll be right back with more Inside Santa Barbara.
Drive one down the middle. Chip it close. Sink the putt. Get your game on at Santa Barbara Golf Club.
Hey John, you know that stuff is toxic to all insects?
I just want to get rid of aphids.
Yeah, it's also harmful to aquatic life when it washes into our creeks and oceans.
Creek, man?
Citizens, word on the creek is there's a poisonous pesticide problem.
No,
Not to worry. Beneficial bugs will take care of that.
we're just talking about how to care for our yards and the creeks.
Glad I could be of assistance.
It doesn't take a hero to protect our creeks and ocean.
Welcome back. As we enter the 6th year of drought, our surface water supplies are at record lows. As of August 29th, Lake Cachuma was at 7.6% capacity. Thankfully, the City Council has taken steps to keep Santa Barbara's water flowing. Due to the severity of this historic drought, the city has been working tirelessly to promote conservation among all its water customers, and has maximized the use of recycled water to irrigate parks, schools, and golf courses. But in spite of a tremendous conservation response by the public, future supply still falls short of demand. In response, the City Council has taken steps to supplement our water supply by restarting the desalination plant.
Desal, bringing it back online, will help diversify our supplies, and it's important to have multiple supplies because you never know when one supply may run out, which is what we're facing with Cachuma, or there may be some restrictions on such as state water where we have adequate water, we bought adequate water, but we can't all get it here all at the same time when our community needs it. And so desal serves an important role in that. And looking ahead to this next year, it's going to be very critical. Desal will make up about 30% of our supply, with another 30% coming from groundwater, another 30% from our imported water through the state water system, and then the last 10% from recycled water. So that kind of is our makeup, and that is with our community conserving at least 35%.
Thanks to infrastructure left over from the original 1992 plant, the reactivation is much farther along, and the construction costs are less than they would have been without it.
It was really essential to have the facility that we had. It's put us so much further ahead. We did get the permits to operate our desalination plant back in 1996. We got the permanent permits, and we have the major infrastructure going out into the ocean. The intake areas is all developed where that's going to go. The property to put this on, a lot of the major electrical infrastructure has kind of already been established. The infrastructure that allows us to discharge the brine water is kind of already in play.
Well, so far we've finished the underground piping and the electrical underground. Very big milestones, lots of equipment underground. We've also received the reverse osmosis skids. They came in several pieces. They've been set at the plant, and now we're connecting them together. So that's the main processing unit. So that's a huge milestone for us that they're actually on site.
Construction of the desal plant started in August 2015. The facility is expected to be operational for testing purposes by November 2016. The testing phase is expected to take about 2 months before water is supplied to the distribution system in January 2017. The facility was originally anticipated to supply water to the distribution system starting in October 2016, but has encountered delays due to contaminated soils on site and replacement of electrical transmission pieces from the old 1990s facility.
We hadn't expected to find contaminated soils at the site. When we started digging for some of the foundations and the underground work, we did find it. We needed to do a notification to the public before we could start removing any of the contaminated soils. And that delayed us about a month while we did that notification before we could start digging. The second thing that we've run into more recently is the way the electrical that's used to power the pumps in the ocean. We've discovered a few things that are slightly different than what we had expected. The way they were designed, it's been very difficult for us to get those cables out of their conduit and put them back in again because of some transitions that they do as they go out to the ocean. I think the thing to remember also is when we built the plant the first time around, they did it in 8 months. They were in the same situation that we're in right now with a severe drought. and they were working very quickly to get the plant online. And so some of the things that were put in then just don't work as well for us now.
The facility will use state-of-the-art technology and design practices to reduce electrical demand and environmental impacts. Thanks to improvements in technology, the plant will use 40% less energy than the original plant by using high-efficiency pumps, motors, and improved filter technology. With surface water supplies critically low due to 5 years of low rainfall, the desal plant reactivation will be a vital piece in helping the city meet its water needs.
We're bringing the facility online at just over 3,000 acre-feet, which is going to be approximately 30% of our water supply. And so we hope that that's sufficient to get us through this drought cycle. We feel that's an adequate size for now, but you know, the potential for desal to help out regionally with our water supply needs is really important.
The desalination facility is an important part of the city's water supply portfolio, which also includes surface water from Cachuma and Gibraltar reservoirs, groundwater, state water, purchased water, recycled water, and conservation. When the desalination facility comes online, extraordinary water conservation from the community will remain critical to meeting water demands during the drought.
Even with desal, conservation is more critical than ever. It is key to being able to balance our supply mix. We cannot meet the demands of this community right now. We're going to need the community's conservation in order to make ends meet, and we will not be taking our foot off the pedal when it comes to conservation. As a whole, as a community, consistently meeting that 35% conservation target has been essential to allowing us to now enter the 6th year of this drought, which is unprecedented.
For more information about the desalination project, visit santabarbaraca.gov/desal. The city is using a new and innovative way to clean the water distribution system. And as City TV's Chris Bell shows us next, this solution has a unique and necessary advantage.
For decades, the city has implemented a water main flushing program as an important part of the maintenance of the distribution system. Flushing is done to clean the drinking water system, removing undesired buildup.
Basically, the flushing program is an annual program where we clean out the mains. Traditionally, it required us to flush hydrants at about 5 feet per second in order to clear out any biofilm or sediment and discolored water to clear out our system.
The flushing program used to clear out all 300 miles of the city water mains every year. I say used to because the conventional technique that was employed was suspended because it had one significant drawback.
The traditional flushing methods usually waste about an estimated 13 million gallons per year.
As the drought became serious, in about the 2nd year, we started to reconsider what our flushing needs were, and we temporarily suspended the flushing effort, or the traditional flushing effort.
Even during normal rainfall years, 13 million gallons is a lot of water, but to send that much water down storm drains during a record drought is not an option. And that's why in 2013, the city temporarily suspended the water main flushing program and began searching for ways to effectively flush the mains without discharging so much water.
Since then, we've actually discovered no-des technology, and we've collaborated with Valve Tech Services. Instead of the traditional methods where we're just running water out of a fire hydrant, we hook up to 2 fire hydrants with a filtration truck, and we are actually able to have an influent filter the water through the truck while we're monitoring for turbidity and dosing for chlorine to maintain the quality of the water, and then reintroducing it to the system.
The no-des process pumps water within the water distribution system at a velocity high enough to remove the buildup. Then it passes it through a series of filters that remove sediment, biofilm, and particulate matter. It wastes virtually no water and has other advantages over the conventional method, like greater data acquisition.
We're able to monitor turbidity, whereas before we were just kind of letting water exit our system. And then we're just matching the water to what the quality was before we filtered it in the vehicle, and then we're reintroducing it at the same quality.
After a successful test of the no-des technology in March, City Council okayed a contract with Valve Tech to flush 140 miles of water mains. Since resuming the flushing program using the new technology, staff is focused on the low zone of the city, which historically has seen more discoloration issues, and because it's the area that will be receiving a new source of water this winter.
Since we had to halt our operations for the last few years, there is going to be some buildup in our pipes, and we are going to be routing desalination water throughout our system, particularly in the low zone, and we wanted to make sure that we were still able to flush and have the system ready for desal so that we run into less issues once it is in our system.
As the City Water Resources Division works its way flushing out the city's water main system, you can rest assured that the water delivered to your meter is continually tested and already meets or exceeds all government standards. Also know it's not uncommon for water main flushing to temporarily cause cloudy or discolored water to come out of your faucet at home or work. This discolored water is caused by those mineral deposits being disturbed and doesn't represent a health hazard. If you notice discolored water coming from your tap at home, the city recommends doing what it does, flush the system. To flush your system at home is simple. All you have to do is open an outdoor tap and run the water into your yard until the water runs clear. You can do this inside too, but just remember to utilize that water somewhere in your landscaping.
The distribution system, we flush it more or less on an annual basis. And we spend a lot of time making sure that our system's clean, and we always urge private homeowners to consider their own flushing needs. Flush out your water heaters, flush out your plumbing from time to time, and then try to use that water for other purposes.
Remember when you flush your system at home to use the cold water tap or a spigot outside.
If you flush your potable water system and are still experiencing water discoloration, call Public Works Dispatch at 564-5413. If you've ever wondered what you can do to help preserve some of Santa Barbara's natural beauty, your chance is here. Coming up, City TV's Adam Brainin shows us some of the fun and rewarding activities offered during this year's Creek Week.
Creek Week is an annual celebration of our local creeks and watersheds, hosted by the City of Santa Barbara Creeks Division, County Project Clean Water, the cities of Goleta and Carpinteria, and UCSB.
There's a large assortment of events throughout the week. It kicks off with Coastal Cleanup Day on Saturday the 17th, so come out for beach and creek cleanups. Also throughout the week there will be tours of local restoration areas, hopefully some native planting events, lots of cleanups, and some tours.
Creek Week started in 2000 as an outreach program to bring awareness to creek and ocean pollution in Santa Barbara. It has since grown to include the cities of Goleta and Carpinteria.
So some of the things that we've done at the City of Goleta in the past is we've had tree plantings with Goleta Valley Beautiful in riparian areas. We've sponsored a number of creek cleanups with other organizations like Santa Barbara Channel Keeper and the Environmental Defense Center. I usually lead a bird watching trip down here at Goleta Beach County Park, and we do see anywhere of 20-25 different species during a 2 or 3 hour bird walk that we do here.
Some of the more popular activities offered during Creek Week include rides on the amphibious land shark and a kayak trip in Carpinteria, which was offered for the first time last year.
We went from the salt marsh out to the reef here in Carpinteria, and that's really neat because the Carpinteria salt marsh is a really unique estuary. It's a coastal salt marsh, and there's not very many of those left, and the fact that we have one here is very neat, and I think it's a great thing to share. You can look up and see the entire watershed from that point when you're out at the reef. Plus, the day that we did it last year, it was really clear, so people could see down at the bottom of the ocean, at the reef. And we had people who've lived here their entire lives who had never been out on the ocean on that kayak paddle. So we're hoping to do a couple more of those this year.
Alongside these fun activities, Creek Week stays true to its core purpose of educating the community about our creeks and watersheds and creating environmental awareness.
My absolute favorite part about Creek Week and all the public outreach activities that I do is working with the youth on learning about our watershed and the importance of clean water and just the little things that we can do that have a big role and a big impact in keeping our environment clean.
Creek Week is really important to the city because it gets people to really understand the role of our watersheds and our creeks. And if they can understand how their actions can cause pollution to happen, then they can understand how they can prevent that pollution.
A lot of people don't realize that things that are washed down the storm drain go directly into our creeks and beaches untreated. Unlike a sanitary sewer system, when you flush the toilet, that goes to a treatment plant where it's treated before it's then discharged into the ocean. So it's important for people to understand that when they throw cigarette butts in the street, or if they don't clean up after their dog during the next rain, that all gets washed down into the curb and gutter, into the storm drain system, and directly into our creeks and therefore onto our beaches. And it's one of the reasons why we have ongoing issues with bacteria, particularly after storms, because a lot of these things are flushed out into the ocean and onto the beaches, and they can remain there for a number of days and can cause, surfers and other swimmers to get sick with different bacterial issues.
Ultimately, the goal of Creek Week is to get people outside to experience and connect to the beautiful environment in which we are surrounded. For this reason, the majority of Creek Week events are free to attend.
So what we're always looking for is bigger turnout, more people that maybe haven't taken advantage of the things that we have to offer here. Like the kayak paddle, a lot of people wouldn't do that because it costs money to rent kayaks and stuff like that, and to be able to offer it for a nominal fee or for free is really neat, and we want to try to get people to take advantage of that.
To learn more about Creek Week, visit sbcreekweek.com or visit facebook.com/sbcreekweek. Well, that does it for this episode of Inside Santa Barbara. If you have any questions or comments about the show, you can give us a call at 564-5311. If you missed something, not to worry, you can watch the show online at santabarbaraca.gov/citytv. I'm your host, Becky Davis, and remember to get involved inside Santa Barbara.